Rome's economic disaster. When the money runs out, the empire falls. Rome was so rich, like we own half the world rich. They built massive cities, controlled global trade, and their elites partied harder than today's billionaires. But then, everything collapsed. The economy imploded, inflation went crazy, the middle class disappeared. The empire ran out of money. And when the money was gone, Rome was gone. So how did one of the richest empires in history go completely broke? And are we heading for the same fate? Inflation. Rome printed its way into disaster. Rome had a serious cash flow problem. Their economy was built on silver and gold coins, but as expenses skyrocketed, the government ran out of precious metals. Emperor Nero was the first to debase the currency. He reduced the amount of silver in the coins so he could mint more, but every emperor after him kept making it worse. By the time of Emperor Caracalla, Roman coins were barely 50% silver. By the 3rd century, they were basically worthless. And just like today, when you print too much money, inflation skyrockets. Romans couldn't afford basic goods, and the economy spiraled out of control. By the time of Emperor Diocletian, taxes were so high that small farmers and business owners couldn't afford them anymore. Many abandoned their land entirely rather than try to keep up. Over time, this crushed the economy because there were fewer and fewer people left to tax. Does this sound familiar? The wealth gap. The rich got richer, the poor got wrecked. Rome had an extreme wealth gap problem. The top 1% of Roman elites owned most of the land and wealth, while the average citizen struggled to survive. By the time of the late empire, Rome's rich weren't just rich, they were untouchable. Meanwhile, everyday Romans were getting taxed into oblivion, prices were rising, and the middle class was disappearing. Doesn't sound too different from today, huh? Military costs bankrupted the empire. Rome was always at war, and at first the conquests paid for themselves. But when the empire stopped expanding, the military budget became a massive drain on resources. Septimius Severus nearly doubled soldiers' wages to keep them loyal. But that money had to come from somewhere, and the empire simply couldn't afford it. Sound familiar? Empires tend to fall when they can't afford their own defenses anymore. Over-reliance on foreign goods, Rome stopped producing. Rome relied too much on imports and not enough on making things themselves. Silk, spices, luxury goods, most of it came from outside the empire. When those trade routes broke down, Rome suddenly couldn't supply its own economy anymore. Today's world runs on global trade. If history is any guide, that might not end well. Rome ignored the warning signs and collapsed. The question is, are we next? Drop a comment and let me know. Are we heading towards another empire collapse? Or do we still have time to fix this? And don't forget to subscribe, because in the next episode, we're diving into Rome's biggest military blunders. Because when an empire can't defend itself, it's over.